My boyfriend threw me out of his house in July this year. This is a man I've been dating for 2 years. He just changed towards me all of a sudden. It was sad that he woke up one day and stopped loving me. Everything I did seemed to piss him off. When I asked him something, he would say I asked too many questions. A few weeks before he threw me out, I noticed he was no longer eating my food. He wasn't even making love to me anymore at that point. And I began to suspect he was seeing another woman. One day, I decided to confront him and ask why he had changed so much and if he was seeing someone else. He got very angry after I asked him this and said he was tired of the relationship. The next day, he said he wanted to break up and that I should pack my things and leave his house before he came back from work. Just like that. Now, a little background. I'm from the Ashanti region where I met my boyfriend 2 years ago. He lived in Accra. And when we started dating, he would come to see me maybe once or twice a month. And I would also visit him sometimes. I introduced him to my family, so they all knew him. About 6 months into the relationship, he told me he wanted me to move in with him since he loved me. And the long distance relationship was too much for him. I was working in my town at that time, but left everything behind for him. When he threw me out of his house, I had just started school at a polytechnic nearby. It had been his idea for me to go to that school in the first place. I worked that night and went to the school during the day. When he told me to move out, I begged him to let me stay. I had no one else in the city, and moving out meant I would have to stop attending the school since my hometown was hours away. My cries and pleas fell on deaf ears. He didn't want me in his house anymore. Now, I had a friend I met in school we will call Alice. I met her on the first day of school, and we had been good friends ever since. She drove her own car, and from what she told me, her parents had rented an apartment near the school for her, and she was living alone. I called her crying and asked if I could move in with her for a while until I sorted out my living situation. She agreed immediately and came with her car to help me carry my things to her place. She said there was no need to look for another place and that I could stay with her until I finished school. Her parents didn't mind anyone living with her, and since they were paying for the apartment, I didn't have to pay anything. I don't know what I would have done during that time if it were not to be for her. I cried for a week straight. I couldn't eat or sleep. And at this point, my boyfriend had blocked my number. Just 2 weeks after I moved out, a woman I was close to in my boyfriend's compound told me another woman had moved in. Hearing this broke my heart even more. I didn't know what to do to myself. I couldn't believe it could move on so fast. Throughout all this, Alice was there for me. She cooked for me morning, afternoon, and evening, and made sure I was eating. She washed my clothes with hers every weekend. Since I couldn't go to lectures, she shared her notes with me. She didn't let me spend a penny of my money. She bought groceries with her own money and even bought snacks for me. She was my rock during that period, and I think I would have unalived myself if it hadn't been for her. Now, since her place was just a one-bedroom apartment, we slept together in the same bed. A few weeks after I moved in with her, I noticed that she was the kind of person who loved to touch a lot. She would hold your hand while talking or would touch your cheeks and pull them in a funny way. She always loved hugging. Most of the time in bed, she would hug me from behind to console me since I was always crying. I won't lie, it was comforting to have her hold me. I just thought that was the kind of person she was and that it was normal. Then one day in bed, while we were talking about general things like school and friends, I was beginning to get over my ex little by little. And I wasn't thinking about him like I did before. I was feeling sleepy, so I told her I wanted to sleep. Like she usually did, she hugged me from behind. I was drifting off to sleep when I felt a hand coming upwards towards my chest. A few seconds later, I felt a hand on my breast, and then she started fondling it. It took me a while to realize what was happening. I was stunned. I just lay there quietly, and she continued fondling me. I hate to admit it, but she was turning me on. It was so unexpected, and I didn't know how to react. Then she suddenly stopped, kissed my cheeks, whispered goodnight, and turned to face the other direction. It took me a while to fall asleep. I didn't know what had just happened. The next day, it felt awkward to look her in the face, but she didn't act like anything had happened between us the night before. She was still as bubbly as ever, acting like everything was okay. That night in bed, she didn't hold me. After wishing me good night, she just took her phone and turned to the other direction. At this point, I was starting to wonder if I had imagined everything. A week later, while we were in bed facing each other and talking about school, she leaned towards me and kissed me out of nowhere. This was not just a quick kiss, but a deep one. Once again, I was stunned, and I didn't expect her to do that. When she realized I was not kissing her back, she pulled back, said sorry, and quickly walked out of the room. She didn't come back until I fell asleep, and I didn't see her the next morning before she left for lectures, even though we were supposed to go together. I was beginning to feel scared. I realized that she wanted us to do something, but I was not into girls. Still, I knew she was my last hope. If she threw me out of her apartment, I had nowhere else to go, and going back to my hometown was the last thing I wanted to do. I was confused and didn't know what to do. I thought about talking to her and explaining that I was not into girls, but what if she got angry and threw me out? That night, when she came back to the apartment, she cleared her throat and apologized. She said she didn't know what came over her and asked me to forgive her. In a way, I was relieved that she was apologizing because it meant she wasn't going to kick me out and that the incident wouldn't happen again. But then she changed. She didn't talk as much as she used to, and she became distant and moody. She stopped holding me in bed and always faced the opposite direction. I was getting scared she would throw me out, and I missed her a lot. I enjoyed how she always hugged me from behind and how she used to tell me jokes to make me laugh. She had turned into a completely different person. One night in bed, with her back turned to me, I hugged her from behind and whispered in her ear that I missed her. She turned towards me, looked into my eyes, and asked if she could kiss me. I nodded. We kissed, and I won't lie, I enjoyed it. Then she started undressing me, and we did things I cannot type here. This was my first time being with a girl, and I was surprised I actually enjoyed it. She took her time to make sure I was okay and enjoying myself. The next morning, she was back to her old self, smiling, talking a lot, and joking around. The following night in bed, we did the same things, and it was really nice. A week later, she asked me to be his girlfriend, and I told her I would think about it because I still didn't know how I really felt. It's one thing to just have fun, and another thing to put a label on it. I didn't know how I felt about dating a girl. She has been spoiling me, buying gifts for me, and giving me money I didn't ask for. And just last week, she bought me an iPhone 16 Pro Max. I know she loves and cares for me, but I'm just confused since I'm new to all this. Also, I received a long text from my ex-boyfriend saying he's sorry and that he didn't know what came over him. He wants me to move back in with him, promising he will never treat me the way he did again, and that he's ready to marry me in a few months. I don't know if it is wise to go back to him because of how he treated me. I'm so confused and I don't know what to do. They are the only ones I have in the city that I can stay with. Also, Alice made me orgasm, something my boyfriend had never done. My boyfriend never gave me gifts too. V, help me. Should I go back to my boyfriend or should I stay with Alice? Babe, you are in a really tough situation. So right now you have two options. Staying with Alice, who seems to care about you, or going back to your ex-boyfriend who hurt you in the past. First, think about what you really want and need in a relationship. You deserve to feel safe, respected, and supported. Alice was there for you during your difficult time. She cooked for you and she buys you gifts and shows you affection, which is something your boyfriend doesn't do for you. Now, on the other hand, remember when you broke up with your ex? He changed his mind about you suddenly. All of a sudden, he didn't love you anymore. He treated you poorly and he cannot be trusted. Now, when deciding whether to stay with Alex or going back to your ex, consider how each relationship makes you feel. Do you see a future with Alice? Are you comfortable exploring this new part of your life? It is okay to take your time in figuring out your feelings, especially since you have nowhere else to stay. And you should also think about how Alice made you feel things your boyfriend couldn't make you feel. She helped you experience things you didn't with him. And that is very significant too. If Alice continues to make you feel supported and happy, it might be worth staying with her. However, if you are tempted to go back to your ex because it seems easier, then you need to be careful because people don't change this easily. You have to think about the risk involved and how his past actions could affect you again. Remember, he changed his mind about you suddenly and he can do it again. Ultimately, I cannot tell you who to choose. But no matter what decision you make, it is important to start saving money for your own place. This way, if things don't work out, you have a backup plan. Now, you are saying Alice gives you money, right? But your boyfriend doesn't. Alice gives you gifts. And you said she has told you that as long as you are staying with her, you don't have to spend a penny. So with Alice, you have the perfect opportunity to save and get your own place. Now, it is your choice and your decision at the end of the day. I want you to trust your instincts and prioritize your well-being and happiness. You need to be with someone who will uplift you. Choose the path that feels right for you. Remember that you deserve to be in a relationship that brings you joy and support. Take care of yourself, babe. If you've not subscribed yet, come and join the family, babe. Come. Subscribe and like this video, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that when I post, you'll be notified immediately. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Okay, I'm done. Bye.